Hello friends, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman. Welcome back to the channel guys, I hope that all of you are doing well. Today I'm going to unbox and try for the first time 5 scents from Fragrance World. The first one is called Suspenso and this one is inspired by Dolce & Gabbana Por Homme Intenso. The next one is called Addict Noir and this one is inspired by Dior Addict, which is a feminine scent. The next one is called Baccarat Satin OT and this one is inspired by Oud Satin Mood from MFK. Then there's Proud of You Oud, which is inspired by Stronger With You Oud. And the last one actually comes from French Avenue and it's called Lumere Ellie. And this one is inspired by Louis Vuitton's Stellar Times. So let's unbox them and try them for the first time. I'm going to start the video off with trying Suspenso from Fragrance World. As I said, this is a fragrance that's inspired by Dolce & Gabbana Por Homme Intenso. Now this is one of those rare cases when I got a 50 milliliter bottle. Middle Eastern fragrance houses, they tend to produce these kind of bottles, but all of them look the same. It doesn't matter from which fragrance brand it actually is being made or manufactured by. Let's check the sprayer. Sprayer is good. The original fragrance, the Dolce & Gabbana original fragrance, is a very interesting one. It's one of those rare occasions where a lot of people in the community love to hate on a designer scent because it's so different than many other fragrances from the same line and the same company. It has quite an old school vibe to it. It's a very interesting mix of some aromatic notes, some green notes. You also get some warm notes like tobacco and amber. And Suspenso seems to be replicating pretty nicely the original scent. There's definitely a lavender note in here. There are a few green notes in here. I pick up a hint of the tobacco note. There's some sweetness to it as well. Also feels a little bit soapy, at least from the first few sprays that I've tried this one. The next one that I'm going to try will be Proud of You Oud, and this one, as I said, is inspired by, or supposedly inspired by, Stronger With You Oud from Armani. So let's see if that holds true. The bottle is very similar to the original fragrances and to some of the other members of the Proud of You line from Fragrance World. The cap is quite heavy and seems to have metallic coating on it. Let's see the sprayer in action. Again, a pressurized sprayer, which is really nice. I love pressurized sprayers. Now onto the scent of Proud of You Oud. It is an fragrance that's heavily inspired by Stronger With You Oud. It carries that Stronger With You DNA, that sweet, warm DNA of the Stronger With You line. But this one definitely has an agar oud note in here that actually feels quite animalic in the opening. Feels more animalic than actually the original fragrance feels. There's a hint of freshness in here, quite a lot of ambery and vanillic sweetness as well. And that's pretty much what you get with the original fragrance. Lots of sweetness, a hint of aromatic freshness and the agar oud note. But the agar oud note in the Proud of You Oud feels stronger compared to the original fragrance and feels more animalic. The next one in line will be Baccarat Satin OT. This one being inspired by Oud Satin Mood from MFK. Bottle. The bottle looks pretty similar to the original fragrance, that's why I'm not going to show you the full design of the bottle. Let's check out the sprayer and see how this one smells. The original is known for being this rose bomb that has quite a lot of ambery and vanillic sweetness and strong agar oud note, and I expect this to be pretty similar to the original fragrance. Another very good sprayer, pressurized sprayer. A nice surprise. The cap feels very cheap and plasticky, very light. This is a strong one. Okay, so lots and lots of rose. That's what I get out of this fragrance. The agar oud actually in the opening is not very strong. There's quite a lot of rose, sweet jammy rose, vanillic sweetness, ambery sweetness, maybe a hint of something floral as well. Also feels a bit powdery, but feels like a very sweet, very jammy type of sweetness with the rose note in here. A hint of the agar oud, but actually I was expecting this to have a stronger agar oud note. Next one that I'm going to try out is called Addict Noir. This one is inspired by Dior's Addict. One of my most favorite women's fragrances actually. So let's see how close this is to the original one. The bottle in here is somewhat reminiscent of the original fragrance, at least color-wise. Get this dark blue colored bottle like the original fragrance has. I think this is one of the older Fragrance World releases, so let's see how good this one is. Decent sprayer. And onto the scent of this one. The original is known for being, this mix of some fruits, some floral notes, and quite a lot of vanillic sweetness. And actually, Addict Noir is doing a pretty good job at copying the original scent. Maybe this feels a little bit more floral, slightly fresher compared to the original fragrance, lacks a bit of the sweetness and the depth of the original one. But the more time passes, actually, it starts to become a little bit richer and a little bit sweeter. Still though having quite a lot of floral notes to it and a hint of sort of fruity sweetness and freshness. And now let's try the last one, Lumere Ellie. This one is supposedly inspired by Stellar Times from Louis Vuitton. Now I'll be honest with you, I've never tried the original fragrance that this been inspired by, so I'm really sort of curious to see how this smells. The box looks really nice. It has this sort of a velvety finish. I think this is another one of those sleeves. Okay, I was finally managed to able to take out that sleeve. It has this interesting finish on it. And now let's check out the actual box, see how this one opens. Okay, very interesting bottle design with a huge cap. Sometimes, you know, those Middle Eastern fragrances, they never cease to amaze me, you know, with their bottle designs. Let's see the sprayer here and how this smells. Sprayer is good, feels almost like it's pressurized. Now onto the scent. Okay. It's sweet, quite a lot of ambery sweetness. Some white florals. Maybe some sort of an woodsy notes in here as well. Feels very light, very delicate, very sophisticated. Definitely leans to the feminine side. Although has enough sweetness in here to be considered an unisex scent. I think the original fragrance is considered an unisex scent, although it's most people tend to call it a feminine scent. This is definitely an interesting fragrance, but definitely leans to the feminine side. Okay, so about 1 hour has passed since I tried all 5 of them. All 5 fragrances featured in this video today. So let's go quickly over the dry downs of each and every one. And again, I'm going to do them in the same order that I started. And I'm going to start with Suspenso, which is inspired by Dolce & Gabbana's Pour Homme Intenso. And definitely here on the dry down, Suspenso starts to get really close to the original fragrance. The dry down is a lot warmer, feels a lot less green and fresh and less aromatic compared to the opening. On the dry down, there's definitely some sandalwood note that feels quite creamy and actually feels really nice. You're introduced to quite a lot of ambery sweetness as well. The tobacco note is a little bit stronger, making this fragrance a little bit warmer on the dry down. Still feels a little bit green, you know, like it did in the opening, but again, just feels warmer and sweeter on the dry down. It has a very classic, very masculine vibe to it. Feels a little bit like something that came out from the late 80s, maybe early 90s scent wise. The next dry down that I'm going to quickly go over will be of Proud of You Oud, which again is inspired by Stronger With You Oud. Again, very similar to the original fragrance, carries a lot of that original DNA, Stronger With You DNA, with lots of vanillic and ambery sweetness. But the interesting thing here is that the agar oud note remains quite strong and quite animalic even on the dry down. And that's a little bit different compared to the original fragrance. There's also a hint of a leather note in here. Feels quite warm, quite sweet, but also a little bit animalic, and I think that's where it differs compared to the original scent, because the agar oud note here is stronger and feels a little bit more animalic. When it comes to the dry down of Baccarat Satin OT, the opening surprised me a little bit because it almost completely lacked that agar oud note that the original fragrance is known for having. The opening here was pretty much all about the sweet, jammy, slightly powdery rose note. And now on the dry down, I've about 1 hour after this one was sprayed, I'm finally starting to pick up some agar oud note in here, which I was really missing and I was really looking forward to. It doesn't feel very animalic, definitely feels less prominent compared to the one that you get in the original fragrance. On the dry down, this really remains pretty much all about the rose. The sweet, jammy rose that has a hint of floral freshness and a hint of powderness. That's pretty much it with this one. The dry down of Addict Noir feels a bit sweeter compared to the opening. On the dry down, the vanilla note is starting to actually get quite prominent, just like you get with the original fragrance. Still though, this remains a little bit fresher with a hint of that floral greenness somewhere in the background that is trying to balance out the sweetness from the vanilla note. Feels a little bit more aromatic compared to the original fragrance. Feels like a slightly lighter, slightly fresher take of the original Addict from Dior. But definitely carries a strong, Addict vibes. And the more this dries down, the sweeter it becomes, and the vanilla note is becoming more and more prominent, which brings it closer to the original fragrance. And now a few words about Lumere Ellie. This one being inspired by Stellar Times from Louis Vuitton. The dry down here is becoming sweeter and sweeter, a little bit more woodsy. There's definitely some, also on the dry down you're introduced to some fruity sweetness in here that almost gives off a bit of a bubblegummy vibes. It smells really, really nice. Still on the dry down, this remains more of a feminine scent, but I'm really, really liking this one, just scent wise. So guys, in today's video I unboxed and tried for the first time 5 scents from Fragrance World. And if I have to pick up 2 scents that are standing out, at least so far the ones that I'm liking the most from my first impressions, there will be Baccarat Satin OT, which surprised me with the amount of rose note that this one has and the amount of powdery feel that I get out of this fragrance, and because of the pressurized sprayer. And Lumere Ellie, which seems to be a very nice, light, sophisticated, feminine scent that so far I'm really liking. I hope that you found this video interesting. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me in the next one. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.